Gen Con. Gen Con. Gen Con. Gen Con. Find us at Gen Con.
Find us at Gen Con.
Find us at Gen Con. Gen Con.
Find us at Gen Con.
Find us at
Find us at Gen Con.
Find us at Gen Con. Hello and welcome to episode 236 of the Board Game Barrage podcast. My name is Mark. I am the Green Tank. I am joined, as always, by Kellen the Red Tank.
I am here.
And Neelan the Orange Tank.
Hello.
And on today's episode, we are previewing Gen Con 2022 in lovely Indianapolis, Indiana, which is going to be kicking off a week from today. If you listen to this episode the day it drops, which I assume you all do. So we are going to be talking about the 5 games we are most excited to see and play. All excited for the upcoming big Gen Con convention?
Yeah, no, totally. I am. I was excited to go back to Gen Con last year, and that has not gone away. It's a great convention. In the context of the US, like the number of just new games that are just on show there, it's exciting. It's got a different feel from your other conventions.
Although, when we were sort of talking about this earlier, the list of games on BGG's tool that they have yearly where you can see the upcoming games in Gen Con seem to be, just in terms of even sheer quantity, less than I can remember it being in the recent past.
Yeah, I do wonder how much of that is maybe just, I don't know, publishers not having their lists up yet, but it does seem like typically at this point in time, more is certainly up. So I don't know. It's strange.
But before we get into what we're looking forward to, we'll be talking about what we've already played. Kellen will start us off with Vabanque. I will follow up with the also funny-sounding game Orongo. And then finally, Neelan will tell us about getting his copy of Blood on the Clocktower, the much-anticipated social deduction game. But Kellen, why don't you start us off with Vabanque? Is that how you pronounce it? Did you figure that out?
Well, I would not trust myself to be the pronunciation expert. And my copy of Vabanque is actually the Japanese version of Vabanque. So who can say how you pronounce Vabanque? But it is a Bruno Fedudi game, lest you think I'm just bringing you weird Japanese indie Mr. Bruno Fedudi of Raptor Citadel's Diamant fame, another word I can pronounce. In Vabanque, you are doing a very straightforward betting and bluffing game where there are a number of casino tables in the middle of the table, and you are placing tokens out onto the different tables in turn order. Then you are placing cards in turn order. You have 3 cards out onto the tables. Then you are moving your pawn in turn order up to 4 spaces around the tables. And then you score points if one of 2 conditions happen. So almost the entire game is structured around the 3 cards that you have in your hand, which are raise, bluff, and cheat. Okay? The bluff card does absolutely nothing and is just designed to fake people out. So when you put down a card, you're hoping they think it's a cheat, but it's actually just your bluff card. It does nothing. Your raise card doubles the payout on that spot if there are no other cheat cards at that table. So if you are a pawn that is on a space with a double card, doesn't matter if it's your double card, you will get double the payout of that space provided there is no cheat card, okay? And then the owner of any cheat card that's out on the board will score for every pawn that they tricked into stopping on that spot. So basically, there are 2 ways to score in this game. You score by getting your pawn onto a space without cheat cards, or by getting your opponent's pawns onto spaces with cheat cards. It sounds really simple, and it is really simple. But what happens is it has a very natural rising round structure where in the first round, all the coins are worth 5. In the next round, it's 10, then 20. In the last round, it's 50. So the stakes get high, and the bluffing is cute and fun. I like this one. This was recommended on the Discord. I don't know by whom. I apologize. It is very simple, very straightforward. We played this with 4. I imagine it's better with 6, in my opinion, just more chaos happening. But I am excited to play this one with both of you. I think you will both like it. I think it's probably going to annoy some people for being a little bit luck-driven, I suppose. And it's also very procedural, and the turn order really matters. And then every round you reevaluate, and the turn order becomes whoever has the most money has to go first. It's very clever and very cute, and a little like it's not a prisoner's dilemma, but that's kind of what it started to feel like with sort of the 3 cards and a very straightforward resolution. What do you want to know about Vabanque,
Well, it's not so much what I want to know, it's what I want to tell you. You were right, according to BGG, in terms of player count. It looks like they're saying 4 is a good number, but people really recommend it at 5 and 6, so you were right there. And yeah, like you were saying, the way you were describing a bluff card, a raise card, and a cheat card made me think Prisoner's Dilemma, but as you said, it doesn't seem like it's 100% that. Again, I'm looking at it on BGG just to get an idea of what it looks like. And it's from, I guess, 2001 and not very well reviewed. But you suspect that to be because when you look at old games like this, I always think people are not satisfied with like the look of it.
Yeah, so the Japanese edition, for what it's worth, looks substantially cooler than the version that I'm looking at here. And the tokens that represent the poker chips, the 5s are yay big, and then the 10s are double that big. And then you get to the 50, and it's literally like a giant-ass cylinder that looks like huge.
Yeah, I'm looking at that image of that, and that looks really cool.
It's just instantly just like so much cleaner than the original version in a way that looks really neat.
Yes.
Yeah.
But, I would say that it's a party game. Again, it's a party game for board gamers, which is a harder sell. And I was playing with a few non-gamers in my family, but everyone enjoyed it. I destroyed them, for what it's worth. But I'm not even sure why it was recommended to me. I just saw it on Amazon Japan. The cover is hilarious of the Japanese version. And actually, the red character is the elusive Vabanque that is a person. And he looks like a swindler on the cover. So, other people were trying to get into their characters. And then I realized that my character was Vabanque himself. No, so honestly, it's one I will bring around to, sort of meetups and game days because it's 30 minutes long and just feels different. And that's a fun place to be. But again, if you have a small board game collection, I would not start with Bruno Feduti's Vabanque, but I'm happy that I have it.
Seems like a good one to bring to Gen Con, theoretically.
Yeah, it'd be fun. Yeah, because it would play 6 and go quick.
And pretty small, probably, right? Small package, yeah.
Yeah, well, not Vabanque's, but the game itself, yeah.
Love it. Last week I spoke about scratching a lesser-known Feld off of my never-played games list in Luna. This week I got a chance to do the same thing, but for Reiner Knizia. A lot more lesser-known Knizias around, gotta tell you, but I got a chance to play Orongo, published by Ravensburger. Orongo from 2014 takes place on Easter Island, where you're competing to erect your tribe's 6 or 7, depending on player count, Stonehead statues. I'm sure everyone listening is familiar with the Stonehead statues from Easter Island. So you've got 6 or 7, depending on player count, and it's sort of a race to build them all. Not catch them all, but build them all. The way it works, Kellen, have a little Pokemon drop there?
Yeah, I was just confused because you know nothing about culture.
That's true. That's true. I've heard that phrase, though. In my
that's
wandering around aimlessly throughout my life. I have picked up on that. The way it works is that you've got a board full of hexes. Some of them have symbols printed on them, while others are blank. And every round, a number of tiles, which correspond to these printed images on the board, are pulled from a bag and then laid on the board in the corresponding spot. So, for example, there might be a spot on the board printed with the number 46 with a little potato image on it. And at the beginning of a round, once you're doing this like populating the board phase, if you flip over a 46 potato tile, you lay it on the board, and then that spot becomes an active spot. So you'll sort of activate these spots on the board at the beginning of the round, and then you'll have a blind bid to determine turn order for claiming those active spots on the board. There are 2 things interesting about this bid. The first is that you're bidding with these little conch shells as currency, so that's a little cute twist, although they're sort of cylindrical in shape and they have a tendency to roll around a little bit, which is a little bit annoying, but it's cute. The other cool thing is that it's a closed economy, so no shells / currency are ever added or discarded from the amount that everybody's using. After the bids are done and everyone's claimed their spots, all the shells that have been bid go into a central pile, and then on a subsequent bid, if anyone bids no shells, so if your bid is 0, then you get all the shells from the central pile, and that's how the money sort of moves around. So this is a situation where you want to be the only person who doesn't bid, otherwise you have to split the shells with everyone else who went with 0. This is a sort of interesting aspect of it where you want to try to make your 0 bid and refill your coffers when you think other players are actually going to bid something and therefore not splitting with you. You're doing all this with the goal of claiming 2 matching or associated symbols with these little transparent tiddlywink markers. That's how you sort of claim your spots. And then you're connecting those symbols to an empty spot on the shore. The moment you do that, you place one of your statues on that empty spot on the shore. And again, you're trying to get rid of all the statues you have in your possession. The first player to do that wins the game. This path building is fun because you've got some of that through the desert / Blue Lagoon stuff going on where you're trying to claim important spots as well as paths to the shore, both of which your opponents can try to cut out from under you. Speaking of Through the Desert and Blue Lagoon, you'll probably feel echoes of other Knizia games. If you play Orongo, the auction, for example, feels a lot like Dream Factory / Hollywood Blockbuster, which are other games with a closed economy. I happen to very much like Through the Desert, Blue Lagoon, and Dream Factory, so I did enjoy Orongo, though perhaps not as much as any of those games specifically. The playtime, which is advertised as 40 minutes on the box, is pretty accurate, and that's definitely one for the plus column. I'd say that if you enjoy tough, tight route building and or closed auctions, as I do, then Orongo is a great, quick opening game or change of pace game between two other games maybe on your game night that you can break out, teach, and play pretty quickly. Though with all the pieces, you have all these little markers and stuff and all these rolling around conch shells, the setup can be a little fiddly. But that said, if you really dislike either of those things, like tight route building or a closed economy, probably won't be something you enjoy too much. I know a lot of people don't really like blind bidding and or closed economies, but it is another solid, tightly designed, if maybe unspectacular Knizia.
Mark.
Yes, sir.
And this is a quote. This isn't from me, so just a question for you.
Yeah.
Are the turns longo, but the components are a bit wrongo?
Beautiful. I don't even know why I spoke for 5 minutes straight of me babbling when the whole game could be summarized in that. I don't think if you're saying the turns are quote unquote longo because of
I'm not saying this isn't me. I said it was a quote. Okay,
is that from the doctor himself?
Yeah.
No, this is from BGG user P Kufa.
Oh yeah, the poet of BGG, as
that's
I
right.
like to call. No, jokes aside, if the longo aspect of it would be like a nod to AP, I guess you could get a little AP. But like I said, it says 40 minutes on the box. I played with other players who were playing it quote unquote seriously, and we got it done in about 40 minutes. So I don't think you're going to get too much AP. The components being Orongo, I don't know why I'm keeping up with this charade, but it's the shells. People have complained about the shells rolling around. It can get annoying, but it's nice. They're cute little shells. I mean, it'd be nice if they probably flattened one side so they didn't roll around, but you can't get everything you want, as Rolling Stone said.
The BGG reviews for this kind of put it in a category where I really want to play it. I was hoping you were going to say that you loved it. There's quite a few really, really high scores saying my favorite of the Babylonia, Through the Desert, all of this. And yet the reviews, 6.7 overall, means that it's some people's favorites, which is the making of a good one. But
I was thinking about saying that I'm looking forward to playing with you. And of course, I'm looking forward to playing with you guys for sure. I don't know where you stand, Kellen, specifically on closed economies.
I was thinking about closed economies. Is that an actual concept outside of board gaming?
Yeah, sure.
Like I could try to sound smart to an economist.
I guess in the context of a community that doesn't have much outside trade or traffic, right?
Yeah. But do you like games with closed economies? Do you like a container and estates?
I think that in general, I don't. And I just think that it eliminates, and even Imperial 2030, right? There's a lot of whether external money is coming in through the investor card or not. And for me, more is sometimes more. It can be really agonizing. I like games with tight decision spaces that are very confrontational. So in general, I should like it. But I think that the idea of everyone has everything and then they're each other with that everything, a la Innovation-esque, feels better to me than one where somehow you've collected all the money at turn 2 and then me and Neelan look like idiots for the rest of the game. Or, in ranked order, Neelan. Well, no, sorry. We're going backwards from the bottom.
Got it.
Neelan.
Less idiot.
Bottom.
Callan.
Before
from the bottom?
Okay, this is what I'm saying, Neelan. Your role on the show is to be the innocent one. Okay, am I wrong? The kind one. So when you grow a beard and start talking like a jackass, you're going against...
I learned it from you, Callan. I learned it from watching you.
That is Orongo by Reiner Knizia and Ravensburger. Neelan, Blood on the Clocktower.
Blood on the Clocktower. Yeah, so I was very stoked when this started rolling out to backers, which has started to happen in the last month. The box for this is lavish. If you're not familiar with what Blood on the Clocktower is, this is a social deduction style party event game in the vein of something like a Mafia or a Werewolf. It has definitely been derisively referred to as Werewolf with more stuff, or just a complicated version of Werewolf.
Or as I like to say, werewolf fanfic.
Sure. The intent of the design is that they have curated very specific compartmentalized sets of roles. So you choose one module to play, and they are very specific. Every player gets a sheet. These are the roles that could be in your game, and the intent of that is it gives you very specific path to deduction about who a player is allowed to be, what they could be claiming to be, and so on. And each of those roles has specific powers that filters around the other characters in the game, when they die, executions, all that sort of good Mafia werewolf type stuff. Otherwise, the end result is kind of the same. The good team wins by eliminating, well, maybe different from Werewolf. The good team wins by eliminating a specific evil player, so the demon in this case, and the evil team wins by just dwindling the town down to 2 people. I feel like this came into the public consciousness most prominently through Shut Up and Sit Down review, which I was actually reminded of because Quinns was reflecting on this in his latest newsletter. So I was very intrigued to play the final retail copy and sort of get my take on the game in all finality. And I think with that in mind, I can say, Quinns, you f***ed it, mate. No, that is absolutely not the case. In all seriousness, I think this game continues to be great. This is now maybe the 7th or 8th time I've now played this in person, I think. And now playing it with the final production copy, it continues to be a really incredible experience. One thing that was really cool about returning it to this way is I was playing it with entirely new people that had never played it before. So there was that joy of discovery all over again, especially when you marry that with the fact that I hadn't played this in a very long time. It's an incredible game. It's an incredible experience. It's one that I enjoy playing every single time. I have still, out of all of those playthroughs, played only one of the modules for the large majority of that time. In fact, I think I've only played one game that wasn't the Trouble Brewing set. And still, just returning to that module over and over again was just finding new paths through the roles and the deduction and like little tricks and tips that even people that were new to the game were just picking up on after game 1 and 2, which was really, really cool to see. I'm super excited to now be in the position where I'll be able to play this regularly and super keen to explore that space with it. It's a cool thing.
I think it is an interesting reflection on how much easier it is to on things than it is to just sort of say genuine sentences in 2022 about liking something.
Totally. And that's kind of like almost this dire indictment of the whole concept of providing an enthusiastic review, right? Which is like, hey, I'm going to put my heart out there and say, I loved this. And the only response is people who either haven't played it or played it once or twice or played it in less than ideal circumstances saying, like, I don't understand why you like this. And it's like, well, okay, well, what are you trying to accomplish exactly?
Yeah, well, okay. So the reason that this sort of reflects on me is because a mutual friend of ours reached out and says, Neelan says not to invite you this weekend. So I found out Neelan was playing Blood on the Clocktower by not being invited by a mutual friend. But it's like when both of you said, I'm playing Blood on the Clocktower this week, my first instinct is to launch into, it's just role-playing, it's fan fiction of werewolf. And then when you come back and you just say, I loved it, I had a great time, it's like so hard for me to not be like, why do you like Marvel movies, bro? But again, I think that there's something interesting about the curated experience. And then the only other thing I'll say is that I have sort of slowly over time been starting to refer to social deduction games as experiential games, which I think is a category for me that I'm making here. It's been made, ergo we do declare, where it's like very hard to compare it to other games, other board games proper, quote unquote, proper with a capital P. And it's like not something that you can, even Resistance, right, when you get down to it at the bottom of everything, like Blood on the Clocktower is fancy Resistance or a variant of Werewolf. They're all the same sort of experience, but it's how much you get lost in it. And, to have something that's so complicated and crafted that you're going to play 50 times, like in and of itself, that's worth the price of admission and more.
Yeah, and there's two things I want to react to there too, and you're not wrong in any of that. There is something that's actually quite more specific about the curated experience that actually really does change the feel of the game. And I sort of only picked up on this from having spoken to people that have played Werewolf extensively, which is that there is an element to which having, hey, these are the only roles that people are allowed to be, and you know that it's in this small subset, that really does twist it into more of a deduction puzzle. And I know that there are complications to that in terms of like the bluffing and the lying and the storytelling and all that, but it becomes more of like imagining your path through this flowchart. If this person is this, then it must be because those two people, you know, like, which is a little bit of a layer on top of kind of the traditional, hey, we're just going to work in vague truths based mostly around like the silly lies that people are spinning. And here's the thing, I don't disagree with you that in the context of even something like The Resistance. We spoke about this after my games of Blood and the Clocktower, where my reaction was, yeah, look, I get it. Like, I get that me shouting nonsense and trying to corral people into like my corner, it might not be people's idea of a good board game. And if I were to like put on my board game like reviewer hat, I can recognize that. But the reality is I freaking love it. It's a worthwhile and consistently enjoyable gameplay experience to me.
Did you happen to be the GM, or I don't know what the term is for the person, the storyteller? What is the term for the person who's running the game?
No, so this was our friend Brandon, also in the Discord, was storytelling both games, did a fantastic job of it. His first time storytelling as well on those two games.
Do you happen to know how much of a role he played in it? Did he tell you after the fact, like, if he push things one way or the other, if there was any of that stuff going on?
Yeah, so there are definitely calls where, for example, like in the one game we had that comes to mind, a role when targeted by the demon may, the role says, accidentally kill another player instead. And that's that at the discretion of the storyteller. And like there was a specific moment where he like even said to the person he killed instead, I'm sorry I did this, but I thought it would be so much more interesting if you were the target of this thing. And like that's a nice sense that the storyteller is walking down the whole line of, hey, this is going to help some people, this is going to hurt some people, but you have to trust me that this is in the interest of the experience.
Would you play a Euro game with a storyteller?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It depends entirely on the context of the game. Again, if it was creating a more compelling experience.
I think what's interesting or even fascinating is how it codifies how I sometimes even play board games, which is I often will see the setup, see that I'm going to win or sort of flame out in a specific way, and then I do something that is going to collectively make the whole table more excited by what's happening, as opposed to what's strictly going to further my benefit in the game. And like that's kind of what the storyteller is doing, is sort of just like the nudge up, the nudge down, the push there, the arc of this would be the most interesting. And so like codifying that I think is like quite fascinating, and perhaps will even be the legacy of Blood on the Clocktower.
That is Blood on the Clocktower by the Pandemonium Institute.
Before we go into our top 5 most anticipated games at Gen Con list, speaking of Gen Con itself, we are going to be there. And if you're going to be there, or if you're interested in following along as to what's going on at Gen Con, you can join our Discord at boardgamebarrage.com/Discord and go to the Gen Con channel where we'll be talking about that. We will probably, I'm sure, organize a meetup with listeners to play a game or two. But also a way to be notified about things that are going on in the Gen Con channel is to add the Gen Con role to your username. You can go to the pinned message on the Gen Con channel in order to find out how to add that role to your user, and that way you will be notified of things that are going on in that channel and in Gen Con itself. All right, so let's get into it. Our top 5 most anticipated games at Gen Con. Who wants to start us off? Neelan, you are next on the screen I'm looking at. The way you have I have you guys arranged on my video screen, you are next. So, Neelan, start us off. What is your 5th most anticipated game?
Yeah, my...
Before we start, Mike DeLisio, professional board game reviewer, sent in his list, and I told him that it wasn't a guest episode, and I said, Mike, I know you're a professional, Mr. Fandango Tank, please. He kept sending it. So, I'll just be really quick. I'll read it to you. And these are all games on the preview list, okay? Karen, literally that's the name of the game. Mike DeLisio's number 5. Number 4, Chonky Donkey. Okay, that's a game also coming out at Gen Con, professional board game review. Maui 3, so he got tricked again, the latest in the Azul Reef Bees Tuesday line of, beating that dead horse. So that's 3. 2 is Mansplaining. Okay, that's also another game coming out at Gen Con. Again, Mike DeLisio's pick, not our pick. And number 1 is, I'm not you, the Golem edition of Equinox. They're remaking Equinox with the Golem edition. And so, Mike DeLisio, you have objectively terrible taste. Thank you for sending in that list. All right, Neelan, carry on. I looked up Maui, right, because I thought, well, he's a professional. And the description, I'm not lying, this is all true, everything I'm saying. Place towels in pleasing patterns on a beach. That is literally the description for the next game in the Azul line. Oh, how the mighty have fallen, and Mike DeLisio along with it.
I don't know. It sounds pretty experiential to me. I think I'd be into that. And
he is a professional board game reviewer, so I trust him implicitly.
I just needed a way to shoehorn in all those.
My fifth most anticipated game from Gen Con is, Mark spoke about the Doctor already, a Rhino Knizia game, San Francisco. This is a urban planning city building tile game that reminded me on the surface a little bit of Electropolis, which is to say that it's a larger game divided into two distinct halves, a interesting bidding system where you're acquiring tiles and then laying them out to create your city, complete with having roads line up. The art style starts to form this adorable old school looking diorama of the city of San Francisco. And I'm seeing a lot of people compare it in some ways to other auction games by the Doctor, mixed with a little bit of Samurai in the way that the scoring works. And that is about scoring by the way that pieces surround other pieces. One of the other interesting comments was someone saying that it felt a little bit to him, not mechanically like Babylonia, but a little bit you can see the DNA of other Doctor games in this and how they sort of coalesce into something that feels just very pleasant. That's San Francisco by Rhino Knizia.
Very pretty production. It certainly grabbed my eye for the production.
There's a lot of only true and living Doctor games on this list.
He's back in high gear.
Yeah, he's back. He never left. He's at NiziaCon.
Colin, what's your number 5?
My number 5 most anticipated game is the one I know the least amount. There is one photograph. Well, it's not even a photograph. It's a JPEG of the front of box from one Mr. Alan R. Moon. Mark, do you know who that is?
I have heard of the man, yes.
Oh, you are aware of him.
I am aware.
You're a professional. That's good. He made Ticket to Ride, children and adults. Ever heard of it? And this game is, and this is a quote, right? So we were talking about the quote of the towels. Now let's compare that to this. The next evolution in Diamant and Ink and Gold. Diamond Dig.
This is Ink and Gold Part 2?
It's Diamond Dig. I don't know anything about it.
Okay. Do you have to pronounce it Diamond?
Well, I can pronounce words any way I want, Mark.
That's true. That's very fair. That's fair.
Each player has their own bag of chips to draw from. It's the next evolution in the Diamant line. I am totally sold. I know nothing about it. No one knows anything about it. There's literally nothing else about it but one picture and that sentence. That's enough. Are you kidding me?
Sure. No.
If it's the next evolution of Diamant, that is Diamond Dig. You can check that out at Gen Con, and I will be doing the same.
My number 5 game is also a game I don't know too much about, but I do like the games that this company has made in the past, including Decrypto. And what is the one where you're doing two things at once?
Stay cool.
And stay cool. Thank you.
But don't cut out the part where I gave it to
Corrected
you.
me.
Because I said it's so...
Cool.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right. Yeah. No, it stays in. It stays in. If anything stays in, that stays in. Anyway, this is Turing Machine. Just as a quick side note, one thing I don't like about this game is the sort of tagline they have on BGG, which is codes are a puzzle, a game just like any other game, which is fine. I don't care, whatever, gobbledygook. But that's, I guess, from Alan Turing from the Imitation Game movie, which I have a big problem with the Imitation Game movie, and I have to.
I love the idea that that's not actually a quote from Turing potentially, but it's only from the Imitation Game movie. That would be incredible.
It's a movie full of lies. Anyhow, I am interested in this. This is a sort of code-breaking, I guess, deduction type game. It does share sort of an aesthetic ethos with Decrypto, so that's sort of a cool thing. And I guess you can play this competitively or solo, and I'm dabbling into solo games a little bit more. So yeah, it's an interesting theme, although deduction games generally are deduction games. But I trust Scorpion Mask in general when it comes to games like this, and big fan of their other word game, party game games like this that aren't Euros or Ameritrash sort of thing. So I'm excited for Turing Machine, which is my number 5 game.
My number 4 game is called Weirdwood Manor. This is a cooperative game with asymmetric players moving through a manor. And it's definitely a sort of a very gimmicky seeming game where the idea is the board has these rotating sections, so the manor is shifting. The connections between the rooms are moving. So this on the surface feels a little bit like Betrayal in the House on the Hill, where your investigator is moving through a room where you're fighting a monster, and that monster has a bunch of different variations, a la something like Aeon's End, where each time you play this, you have a different monster that has its own unique deck. Each character has its own unique deck, so there is a heavy dose of wanting to try each of the characters. The mechanics are hand management, dice drafting type system. It's got a very vibrant art style. My one worry with this is there's not a really strong sense of, how heavy or light on this, how family weight this is. I kind of remember going into Gen Con last year being excited about the loop and sort of coming away a little bit disappointed that it was a much lighter game than I anticipated. So that's my worry with this, but that's Weirdwood Manor.
If it's co-op, you can know that it's not on my list. My number 4 game might be number 1 on Neelan's list, so I'll just say it and then Neelan can scream at me. My number 4 game comes to us from a publisher, CGE, and is called Deal with the Devil.
Was this on the list? How did I miss that? Because I'm excited for that game, but I just somehow didn't see it in the list.
Well, I would say that I sort of am better at finding the gems in the rough, CGE, a hidden gem. So this comes to us from the designer of a very good game, Alchemist, but it is essentially a competitive Euro game where you have hidden roles. And so one player is a mortal, one player is a cultist, and then someone is even playing as the devil himself. And using those asymmetric roles, you're sort of trying to, I assume, deduce what other players are doing and playing a Euro game, but not necessarily knowing what other players are trying to accomplish. And I think that, we've seen a glut of asymmetric sort of fighters on a map type games, but this feels like it's pulling that ethos back into Euroland. And I love things like hidden endgame scoring in Trois or Archipelago. And so even looking at this, I have not read the rules, but the components don't look like too much, right? It's not too much for me. And I think Alchemist, if that's a good sort of layer to this, this is saying 80 to 160 minutes. I hope that holds accurate. This is I think the heaviest game on my personal list, and just excited about sort of the fun that we all have when we play games like this, where literally Mark is going to move his pawn 1 square forward, and then Neelan and I will both scream immediately that he's the devil, even if it has nothing to do with the game.
Yeah, what's exciting about this is only the second game designed by Kotri, who's the Alchemist designer. So it's just like the much anticipated follow-up to what is a very successful game for him.
My number 4 game, I'm going to suspect, is higher on Kellen's list because it promises to be a 4X in a short amount of time, and that is Last Light.
It's not on my list. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So never mind that.
I am excited.
The primary reason I'm interested in it is just that sales pitch. A 4X game that you play in 60 minutes sounds interesting. I've heard it's even good at low play counts. And also, it's designed by Roy Cannaday of the Dice Tower, and he seems like a very enthusiastic guy who seems like it's going to be a heartfelt passion project. So I'm interested to see what turns out from Last Light, and that's by Roy Cannaday, Grey Fox Games.
I would love to play this. Every time we get to a convention, I mean to play this, and we just never do. And I do think that this sort of genre is rife for it, and I think people are chasing after it with things like Warpgate and to a lesser degree Imperium the Contention. But what a good genre to try to get the sub 2 hour large player count game like this in.
Yeah, we were so close to getting to play it at Dice Tower West, and it somehow just slipped through the cracks. So after hearing everyone rave about their plays of it, I have backed this, so I'm very excited for it as well.
Oh, you backed it?
Yeah.
The all-in?
Probably not. I think it must have just been like the base, I think.
You're on a backer spree. You're putting the whole team on your back.
Yeah, like having stepped back and actually evaluated myself, I'm now just off the deep end again. Anyway,
that's what I'm supposed to be doing for you.
My number 3 game is another CGE game. This one, ironically, I'm less excited about this than Deal with the Devil, but that's how it goes. This is Starship Captains. This is a Euro game, sort of pastiche of Star Trek, where the idea is you're assembling your ship and your crew and sending the crew out on missions, upgrading your ship. The thing that is always very reliable about these mid-weight Euro games from CGE is that they're always solid. I remember saying last week, maybe about Arnak, that it's not the most exciting game in the world, but at the very least, you know there's like a bare median level of quality when it comes to CGE. So I'm not expecting this to be bad, and I really hope that this does end up being one of their better games. That's Starship Captains.
Yeah, I like the art on this one.
Yeah, it's kind of got like an almost like Futurama-esque kind of cartoony vibe.
Well, now I don't like the art on this one. My number 3 game is a Uwe Rosenberg game, and it is a little tough reading some of the reviews for this by how many people say, I wasn't expecting this to just be Nova Luna again, but here we are. This has a really exciting, for me, a captivating cover. The game is called Framework, and it appears to be a spin off Nova Luna. Neelan, you already had a spin on Nova Luna. What is that one called? Sagani?
Yeah, Sagani is, again, different but equally compelling in my opinion.
Yeah, and Framework appears to be even simpler than Nova Luna, but perhaps allows for a little bit more hate drafting. And I love the word drafting. And so...
That wasn't the one I was going to pick.
Oh, yeah, I'm trying to surprise people, sort of throw them off balance. No, I love Uwe Rosenberg. This is one of those ones that I feel like I just love to pick up at the convention, play it 3 or 4 times while we're there and just have like a nice classic Uwe game without Uwe sex, because there's no animals, unfortunately. I've mentioned too much about sex as it goes, but you're going to cut the Stargate thing.
Yeah.
Definitely. You're not going to
For sure.
embarrass me about Stargate.
Never
Okay.
But
All right,
the only reason you kept watching Stargate.
Well,
Like maybe
let me
this
tell
one.
you, there's a lot of seasons, and there is not a lot. All right, and that is Framework.
My number 3 game is a game that I got interested in primarily because there's been a lot of talk in our Discord about it. This is...
Stop, thief. That's my number 1. We'll talk about it later.
All right. Never mind then.
My number 2 is maybe higher than a wild card pick sort of deserves to be, but this is Time of Empires. This is a game that uses the sand timer worker placement style system that stuff like Pendulum, Kitchen Rush has all used, where the idea being you place a sand timer down and you have to wait a certain amount of time if you're allowed to move it. But this is all in the vein of like a through the ages adjacent civilization building game where you are creating wonders, electing leaders, and there is a shared map component where you're actually spreading out and across. So all of that just sounds really intriguing to me, but like something about just the real-time nature of this is really going to make or break it. But the intent is that it plays in under 45 minutes, and you're ticking a lot of weird boxes as well as boxes that like really draw me to other games. So yeah, Time of Empires sounds really interesting.
I saw this one and was intrigued, but I'm just concerned. I don't know. I like the idea of a sand timer pushing the game to a like shorter time span to like force it to be an hour-long game, but a competitive game with sand timers, civilization thing where there's a shared map and presumably you're being attacked as a sand timer is running and you're not sure what's going on, seems like it's just going to be a little chaotic.
I'm nodding and smiling at all of that, Mark. That sounds great to me.
I tore off my I Heart Jamie Stegmaier bumper sticker long ago. And had Mark, the exact same thing. I was like, ooh, Civ. Oh, like, I like this art. And then I'm like, the are these sand timers doing in here? My number 2 most excited game is a straight party game. And there's been a lot of pre-buzz for this. I think they sent it to a lot of influencers, but, Board Game Geek's number 1 board game podcast of the year did not qualify to receive an advanced copy of this game. This is Green Team Wins, and it is the most
I like it already.
Similar. Yeah, that's true. I should have thought about that. God damn it. Seems like sort of like the rounds in sixes where the only goal is to have the most common answer at the table. Basically, you always want to be on green team. So the question will be this or that, and then the question is curly fries or waffle fries. And the only way for you to score, and goes up to 12 players, is to guess in the majority, which obviously would be curly fries. Anyone who picks waffle fries is an idiot. And then the other types of questions would be best of 3. So, for example, what flavor is green, right? Is that lime, apple, or watermelon? And so this is how we play sixes, where every question that's read in sixes is immediately an argument afterward where people start screaming at each other about how could you not have picked this, blah, blah, blah. And then the last type of category in Green Team Wins is just a fill in the blank where it's like got one word and then you fill in the next word. And again, you're just trying to always be on Green Team, and Green Team is the most common answer. And that is how the game works. Just something I've been seeing in the ethos. I'm excited to play it, but I probably would have moved it down my list had I realized how much this speaks to Mark with the Green Team Wins sort of name.
Actually, I would ask Neelan. Neelan, are you at your computer right now?
I am. Yeah, why?
Okay. Can you go to Green Team Wins on BGG, the actual page for the game?
Don't do it. Oh, yeah.
Are you there?
Yes.
Okay. There's a part on BGG pages where they say the description of the game. Do you see that part?
Yes.
Neelan? Okay, can you read the first sentence of the description just so our listeners know what the game is like?
This is terrible. Players will be on one of 2 teams, orange team or green team, and then the green team wins?
Perfect. Should have been my number 1 game. Kellen, I applaud you for your pick.
That is blasphemy.
My number 2 game is called Catherine, the Cities of the Tsarina. This is a game that I actually don't know too much about, but it looks like a game that stresses hand management and simultaneous action selection. The way you place your cards and the location you place your cards are going to influence how you can take your actions. And there's something about that. It makes me feel like this sort of like the Arc Nova thing where, when you take an action determines how strong the action is going to be. I get a sense of that, like where you place the card and adjacent to what cards are going to affect how the card acts. I just like that idea of a hand management game where the strength of your action is going to be determined by other considerations. So yeah, just one that I'm interested in mainly for the mechanisms. So that is Catherine, the Cities of the Tsarina.
I had this tagged as Mark bait on BGG. So
Perfect.
I was thinking about including it, and then I said, oh no, we've got Mark.
My number 1 most anticipated game ticks so many Neelan boxes, it's kind of ridiculous. This is the Shadow Planet, the board game, which is a bad name. But this is a deck-building, science fiction, semi-cooperative game where you are...
What?
I know, right? Right?
Shadow what?
The Shadow Planet, the board game. And it's got this great, vibrant art style, and that could all be very scary if it was from unknown designers, but this is from Giacomo and Gianluca Santopietro, who are apparently the designers of letters from Whitechapel and Whitehall Mysteries. So there's some pedigree there. Games that we covered very recently, and Kel and I really, really enjoyed. So there's this element of moving around this shared space and having an objective that you're working towards you that's hidden from other players, and not knowing exactly when other players might turn against you. Even mechanically, there's some very novel stuff going on here. It's a deck builder, but using multiple decks that all of the players share. So you might construct the deck in a way that might hurt other players when they have to use that deck versus helping you when you get to use it. I think that's kind of how it works. It's kind of a weird concept that I'm not quite sure I have quite a handle on, but super intriguing. Very excited to check this one out. That's the Shadow Planet, the board game.
Neelan, of the Santa Pietro brothers, I'm going to say?
You know what? I cannot find that out. I cannot find...
Are you more of a Gianluca guy or a Giacomo guy?
Oh, I've always been in Gianluca's corner.
Yeah, I
What
figured you.
are you talking about?
Kellen, this is a board game podcast.
I'm trying.
We're talking about the Santa Pietros, obviously. Jeez Louise.
All right. My number 1 most excited for game, and again, before you start adding us, right? Like games that we have covered before, I tend not to cover. I'm very excited for Brazil, Imperial, a game I've been excited about for a long time. I am excited about Arrakis, Dawn of the Fremen, Dune, but I have already played it, right? Okay. I'm excited for it. I have already played Crescent Moon, another big one. The game that I am most excited about that Mark tried to steal is Cat in the Box, Deluxe Edition. I am only ashamed that I did not pick this up when it was just a Japanese trick taker, but instead deciding to pick it up when Bezier has reprinted it with a adorable cat on the cover. Mark, this was your number 3 most excited about game?
It was, yes. And part of the reason was I just played Niet, which is a trick-taking game from a couple years ago that I think shares some DNA with this.
Yes. I like Niet. Did you play the one with the bad art or the older good one?
The bad art.
Perfect.
The one that you get 5 postcards in the game featuring the art. Yeah.
Well, that's good. In Cat in the Box, I think the big sort of funny thing is that there are no suits to the cards, and similar to the is the cat dying if you don't look at the box paradox, when you play a cat, you get to declare what color it is. So you play a card that's a 5, and you say, this is a red 5 cat. And then you demark it on the board. And so there's more strategy. Well, I wouldn't say more strategy, or the trick takers will kill me. The trick takers are serious people. I don't know if it's more strategy. There's a lot of strategy because you're looking at the board and sort of evaluating what you want to declare your black cat to be. And I think the production looks lovely. I'm really sad that I did not back the Kickstarter. Very excited to check out Cat in the Box Deluxe Edition and feel like it will be the first booth I try to go to.
My number one game is a Mark game. I think if Kellen had run across this, he probably would have selected it as the game that I would have picked.
Choo-choo.
Close. Wait, which one are you talking about?
I don't know. I figured it would kind of
It's
cover
another-
a few.
It's
Probably a
another
safe bet
form
to
of
assume choo-choo has something to do with it.
It's another form of transportation. This is Autobahn, which is, look, when I'm talking about games that I'm excited for, I do like heavy games. I'm excited for them, sometimes irrationally so, and I'm completely understand this game may fall flat, but it's just when it comes to excitement levels, I'm excited for a well-constructed, pretty looking heavy game, and this is, I think, the game that fits that qualification for Gen Con. You are building the Autobahn, which is the famous freeway system in Europe, and what I like about it in terms of the game mechanisms is that it seems to be like a shared infrastructure thing where you're building part of it and other players can benefit from it. So there's a consideration of, should I be building this now? Is it going to be a situation where I'm allowing other players to piggyback off me too much? And conversely, like, you might encourage another player to do something hoping to piggyback off the infrastructure that they're building. Not too much else I know about it. It seems quite nice looking, and the early reviews that I've seen seem promising. So yes, my number one game is Autobahn. And that's going to do it.
No one picked Twilight Imperium, the roll and write?
It was number 6 of mine, like, genuinely.
Is that a thing?
It's very much a thing.
Twilight Inscription.
I read about it. I'm actually genuinely excited.
No, I'm genuinely excited too.
It
Also-
has 4 sheets, one for each of, like, exploring and military. It's ridiculous. It's so ridiculous.
That's the thing that got you excited, the 4 sheets?
Yeah, having 4 different sheets. No, but the fact that it's that, like, expansive and elaborate, just it like tickled my dumb, heavy roll and write brain, which has been disappointed every single time.
I was trying to figure out
This
how
is
much
a 2-hour roll and write?
how much interaction there was. If, like, I could have confirmed there was more, I actually would have put it on my list. Also, there is another Risk Legacy coming out, which is really interesting to me because I feel like Risk Legacy is the only good Legacy game, so come at me for that. This is like Risk Shadow. I don't even remember what it's called now, but looks interesting. What else?
I'm still blown away by this Twilight Inscription thing. 2-hour long roll and write, that's a 3-weight. That's crazy. I also want to shout out what appears to be the hottest game on the hotness list, if you sort them by hotness level, Cora Quest. So shout out to the Pigeon Blood tank, Dan.
Mike deliberately excluded that from his list of 5.
Kellen read out the top 5 of his list, but I think Mike sent you a list of every single game there and had them ranked and had that lowest on the list?
It was pretty close, yeah. It wasn't exactly lowest, but it was close. There's also a party game called Ven I'm excited about. There is a version of Spicy, but with cats on the cover, which is called Sweet and Spicy, which it almost got me. Squid Games has a version of their board game coming out where you can buy a, like, signed copy of it, which I don't want. Anything else?
I'm interested in Tabriz, which is the follow-up to Cascadia, so figure it's one that I'm interested in. I'm also somewhat interested. I've been playing a lot of Great Western Trail on BGA, and so I'm interested to see what Great Western Trail Argentina looks like.
Yeah, same.
Because there's also Great Western Trail New Zealand that's going to be coming out next year, and I'm just wondering how far you can stretch the whole Great Western Trail, either theme or, game system. So
Yeah,
I'm curious.
I think it's going to live and die for me on how substantive the changes are from the original. Like, if it's closer to like a retheme with small tweaks, I'm maybe less interested. But
Yeah, I can't imagine that.
no, but
Really
there's like a very crucial point that has to cross
Yeah.
for it to be something that I'm compelled by.
totally agree.
I'm also tentatively interested in Clank Catacombs, which is a new game in the Clank line that introduces an expanding, explorable tile-laying style system to exploring the dungeon. I feel like Paul Denon is just on a design kick right now, so excited to check that out.
They say that my pronunciation is bad, Mark.
Hello.
Catacombs?
Oh, yeah.
Like
I don't know the
tombs,
ending.
you know?
Catacombs?
Mm-hmm. Womb, tomb, catacomb. Got him.
So that,
Sky Mines, Mombasa, but I already talked about it.
yeah, I'm curious about that too. Having just played Mombasa and really enjoying it. That is going to do it for our lists, and that is going to do it for the show. Let us know what you're looking forward to seeing, playing, hearing about as far as Gen Con is concerned by going to our Discord at boardgamebarrage.com/Discord. The Gen Con channel is there for you to discuss what you're looking forward to, discuss what you've played, all that good stuff. Again, go to the pinned message on that channel to find out how to get alerts. You can find us on all forms of social media. You can email us at boardgamebarrage@gmail.com. You can join our Patreon. We are going to be recording our bonus episode soon, and that'll be released shortly. And there are plenty of bonus material out there for our patrons. So the best way to support the show is to join the Patreon at boardgamebarrage.com/Patreon. A big thank you, as always, to Heart Society for our intro and outro song, What's on Your Mind, Kid? And until next week, goodbye.
Bye.
Okay, ready to clap?
Yes.
3, 2, 1.
Okay, Neelan.
Hello.
If a router is a router, then what's a router that you work with wood?
What?
What? As in, okay, I'm assuming a router is some sort of wood tool. I'm not familiar with this, so
I'm not
couldn't
familiar
tell
with
you.
that either.
Okay.
Well, none of you are Boy Scouts, I can tell.
What do you do with a router involving wood?
Give me 1 second.
Definitely a real thing.
No. It's definitely a real thing because you can buy it. How would you use a wood router? That's a video. And I'll just you'll cut.
How would a
watch it real
router
quick.
root wood if a router
Yeah, just
could
give me
root wood?
1 moment. Okay, that's an intro.
Yep, that's an ad.
Okay, so it appears to be a device for wood.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, check.
You can route. Oh, you adjust the routing depth. You put it on top. Oh, you're making like pretty in the wood. Like if you needed to go down in the wood and then across, that's a router. So like
You're like cutting grooves into wood?
Yeah. So like a card holder for board games. That was what this was all about, Neelan.
Oh, I've seen those thingies, like automated wood carvers. Yeah, I don't know. I'm very now curious to like see if I can get a wood router British pronunciation or something like that. A router is router, never router in both the US and the UK. So there you go.
Wait, it's always router?
It's always router.
Router.
That specific use of the word is always router.
So Neelan is objecting because a router is for wood and a router sends internet across the home.
Exactly.
The only router I know is Roto-Rooter. You've seen Roto-Rooter commercials, right?
I feel like I have.
They're a
It's the
plumbing
thing that you
company
put
in
into
LA.
like your drain. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Now that we're warmed up, here we go. Hello and welcome to episode 236 of the Board Game Barrage podcast.
Better games. That's Starship Captains.
Yeah, I like the art on this one.
Yeah, it's kind of got like an almost like Futurama-esque kind of cartoony vibe.
Well, now I don't like the art on this one.
I mean, it's Star Trek. Let's say it's Star Trek. It's not Futurama.
Well, I mean, Star Trek doesn't
I guess
have the cartoony animated style.
Sure,
like
but
it's
it's certainly-
specifically like the aesthetic, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Sure. I mean, I'm just saying, if we're talking about art and we don't mention Star Trek, or definitely Star Trek, it feels weird to me.
Oh, I definitely did say Star Trek right at the upfront.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So
100%.
I don't sound dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Never have I ever seen Star Trek except for the amazing Marvelified versions that have come out as movies. Into Darkness.
Oh, right. the Abrams Star Treks.
Yeah, exactly. The good one.
Oh my God.
What about What about Stargate? Who's a true nerd here?
I don't think that makes you a true nerd.
Are you kidding? Stargate?
What? What about Stargate?
Stargate?
Star Trek?
Are you kidding me? They put nudity in the first episode to get you in, and then there's no nudity for the rest of the show. I'm on to you guys. My number 3 game is a Uwe Rosenberg game. And all right, we need a new intro for this because it was so low energy. So we need to just chant Gen Con, and then at the end we say, come find us at Gen Con. So it's like Gen Con, Gen Con. Gen Con. Find us at Gen Con.
Find us at Gen Con.
Find us at Gen Con. Gen Con.
Find us at Gen Con.
And then put that at the beginning. No, Neelan, stop.
Neelan, why'd you screw that up?
Now put that at the beginning.
Yeah.
That'll draw them in. Draw them in.
I think that's going to, yeah. We should just replace the theme song with that.